Okay, so we are back with you, ladies and gentlemen, here on StreamYard. This is the Celtics Talk Radio video chat here with you again. Of course, I have Andy Vernon and Igor Mitic with me. We are hope to be joined by our fourth member, Kevin Dixon, soon in this case. Guys, we are here to talk about the last week in the Celtics world in this case, which of course didn't go too well in this situation if you're a Celtics fan. We finally got many people looking to hit the panic buttons, many saying that the team should blow it up at this point, as the Celtics played 3 games since our show Monday night, you guys. Of course, me and Igor were the only ones that were on the air that night, along with our special guest in that show. You can hear that show on blogtalkradio.com. But the Celtics, again, since Monday night's show, played the San Antonio Spurs here in Boston, losing that game 99-97. Jaylen Brown had a chance to tie the game at the buzzer, but was not able to get the ball to go in on a layup attempt. The Celtics then, the very next night, Thursday night, ended up losing in New York against the Knicks 108-105. That game saw the New York Knicks playing without Kemba Walker and without Nerlens Noel, and saw once again former Boston Celtic Evan Fournier come back and basically kill the Celtics. I don't know what it is with Fournier, you guys, that it seems to basically seem like he holds a grudge against the Celtics for getting rid of him. Every time that brother seems to play the Celtic, he seems like he basically becomes all of a sudden a top 5 player in the NBA, but then sucks against the rest of the league in this situation once he's playing a different team in this situation. And then the Celtics got their only win during the last few games when they played the Knicks just last night in this case here in TD Garden. They blew them out 99-75. Evan Fournier didn't play in that game alongside Kemba Walker and Nerlens Noel. Of course, there were several other Knicks who didn't play during this 2-game stretch, this home-and-home stretch. Igor, of course, will mention all those other names. The Celtics, on the other hand, had practically everyone available to play. So that home-and-home stretch was very lopsided when you want to talk about the injuries and all of that. So that was a home-and-home stretch that you should have swept, in my opinion, but yet you ended up going 1-1. And again, you should have beaten the San Antonio Spurs Wednesday night, and you ended up losing. In this case, you had a blown 30-point lead in one of those games. You blew that as well in this case. Now the Celtics, you guys, are going to be going into a stretch where you're going to be facing some pretty stiff competition. You got a home-and-home series here with the Indiana Pacers starting tomorrow, and then Wednesday on the road in Indiana. So tomorrow it's versus Indiana here in Boston, then at Indiana Wednesday. Then you're going to be facing Joel Embiid and the 76ers Friday, and then you're going to face the top-seeded Chicago Bulls, again, the team that leads the Eastern Conference, Saturday night in this case. So the next 4 games could very well be another way for you to maybe turn things around, or it could very well be that you end up going right down to the bottom of the Eastern Conference for all we know, if you don't basically do too well at this point. And then after that, you're going to be facing teams like the Pelicans, the Hornets, the Trailblazers, the Wizards. So you had a pretty reasonable stretch here to face some of the easier teams in this situation based on record and all of that. And I think you kind of let it slip away. You kind of lost a golden opportunity to get some decent wins and maybe try to go up into the upper half of the Eastern Conference standings. And if you don't do the right things now, you could end up easily going down to the bottom half. You're more likely right now, in some people's opinion, to miss the playoffs than you are to basically get in. So let's get you guys' thought basically before we start breaking down what we saw during these 2 games.
Okay, I will try to enter shortly. Really bad stretch for the Celtics. I will just say that we defeated Orlando home, but we could lose because Orlando was leading like 14 in the 4th period. That is proving you how bad how bad we played, and we turned around that game. But Orlando is last dead at the Eastern Conference, 7-33. So Orlando should not make a run in your home TD Garden, in my opinion, at least. New York, I mean, we are 2-2 against New York. It was good win last night, bounce back win, to say that way. But I disagree with Ime Udoka and majority of our fans. I think at the page who they said that this win is a statement win. First of all, I have a piece of information for those guys. New York Knicks are a very bad team. They are 19-21, similar as Boston Celtics number 11 at the Eastern Conference. So if you're making statement win against 11th team at the Eastern Conference, then I don't know what is statement win. I mean, it is looking to me like some Benny Hill joke. Then number two, Knicks, you mentioned they played the first game with Evan Fournier, the second game without 8 players. Ryan Arcidiacono, Dodson, Evan Fournier, Mike Mooney, Nerlens Noel, Derrick Rose, Luka Šamanić, and Kemba Walker. Notable missed players: Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, Derrick Rose, and Nerlens Noel, Boston native. So you played without. We played without Pritchard, if I'm correct. Danny will correct me if we miss somebody else, or I will look like. But I think that pretty much we were complete at the last game against New York. And this is the game that we put ourselves into position that is must win for us. Because first of all, so Broderick Thomas and Peyton Pritchard didn't play for the Celtics. Yep. So we put ourselves into position that this game against the New York Knicks is a must-win game. Why must-win game? Because we would sink alongside the standings. We were in the lottery position number 11 before the game. Right now we are sharing position number 10 with the Knicks, 19-21. So if we lose the game number 4 against the Knicks would win the whole season series against us. So they would be ahead of us at the standings. So that is why we had to win the game, and it was nice. Bounce back win, but I would not jump out of joy because of the win. Of course, kudos to Jaylen Brown for the triple-double, 22, 11, and 11, and kudos to all the players that showed up at that game. But again, really bad stretch. I want to talk, and Andy will talk about the game number 3 that we lost after leading 25 points. It was really embarrassing loss. And after that game, again, we had many strong reactions from the Celtics media, including Chris Forsberg, starting talking about the lottery. Kendrick Perkins said, quote, "The Celtics are broken." The Celtics legend Bob Cousy said, criticized the team, explained practically what we were here talking about, that the Celtics miss the true point guard, and said that we will have to wait until banner number 18 in a while. That's practically what I said. And after last night's win, interesting, we had a clash between Jason Tatum and Kendrick Perkins. It was my surprise because Kendrick Perkins praised Jaylen Brown triple-double and said that Jason Tatum didn't show up or something like that, and Jason Tatum didn't like that. He responded to Perk that he doesn't have to put one player up and the other player down. Jeff Goodman and his crew, Bob Ryan, and what is his name? I will Gary Tanguay. they also talked about splitting Jays and proposed the trade. Jeff Goodman on NBC Sports Boston, he and Bob Ryan were thinking about trading Jaylen Brown for Domantas Sabonis. Domantas Sabonis and the Pacers, we will face them twice in the next week, starting Monday, and if I'm correct, Wednesday, first in Indianapolis, then in Boston, if I'm correct. So a lot of things happened, and that war between Kendrick Perkins and between Jason Tatum, it started literary wall. Our friend Nick Gelso supported Kendrick Perkins because he said that Kendrick Perkins has the right to criticize the team and Jason Tatum, and also Kendrick Perkins called the Celtics fans soft. It is one of my favorite quotes. I will try to find it. I think that I posted actually you all Celtics fans are changing. You are getting soft. I remember you all used to boo us, the Celtics team, for underachieving. I guess the times has changed, or shall I say expectations has changed. In other words, Chris Forsberg used the sentence that the Celtics organization from the top bottom to the end is in the hot mess after the loss against New York Knicks. The nice bounce back win, and we will talk about that. Also, a couple of other subjects. I think that Andy has really good takes about that Knicks loss. I have takes about the Celtics mistakes at the edges, because we fired or cut Jabari Parker. We will discuss in the second part of the show. Was that smart? And also article from John Karalis from Boston Sports Journal and Locked on the Celtics about the Celtics mistakes around the edges, or why the Celtics cutted the players like Javonte Green, like Garrison Matthews, like Max Strus, and why all those players are working at the other franchises, and in Boston those players are not working. Is there any particular reason for that, or maybe not? Max Strus in Heat win against the Blazers 115-109, he had 25 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 7 3-pointers made. Garrison Matthews, for example, he is having also double digit deficit, shooting 37.8% on 6.8 threes, and he shooted like 150 threes for Houston. He's a starter. This is the subject for the second hour, and we are waiting for Kevin and Andy. Your impressions. Do you want to talk about the Knicks win or the Knicks loss?
Well, I don't. I mean, so to me, the thing with this Celtics team is it's sort of pointless to talk about one or two games, because the problem with this team is they're not consistent from game to game. So and when you have a team that is this inconsistent, when you talk about one or two games or a stretch of games, even, you're basically talking about outliers, because there's no consistent point here that there's nothing we could really draw positive anyway across the last two games, or even the last three games going back to the Spurs game. But I think there are some things that we can see here that kind of point to where Boston's struggles are at. And I put up a post about an hour or two ago on the weekly Green Celtics fan forum, and I was looking at the 3-point percentages in Boston. And when you look at the percentages there, we're not a good 3-point shooting team. If you take the 6 notional starters, we have Smart, Schroeder, Brown, Tatum, Horford, Time Lord. Out of those 6, Time Lord doesn't even shoot 3-pointers, so we could write him off completely. Horford has traditionally been okay as a 3-point specialist for a big man, but this year has been, I think, one of his worst years ever in his career when it comes to shooting the three. And then Schroeder has never been a good outside shooter, really. I mean, he's a good inside scorer. He's good at driving to the rim. He's good at using that acceleration and burst to get there. But he's never been a good three-point shooter. I mean, remember, Celtics fans, I don't know if we didn't watch the playoffs last year, if we just forgot. But Dennis Schroeder is the guy. The reason that he didn't get that contract from the Lakers is because he basically disappeared offensively in the playoffs. So he's not a great offensive player, really. Or he's not a consistently good offensive player. The only player out of that notional starting six. So if you say our starting five and our sixth man, because Time Lord, and Horford kind of split the starting minutes. So, they have roughly the same minutes, right around 29-ish per game. If you take those six, the only one of them that's shooting above 36% is Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown is shooting 36.1%. So he's really like barely over 36. Everybody else within that starting six is shooting below 34%. And yet we're a team that really lives and dies by the three. Normally when we win games, it's because our three-pointers are falling. Most of the games we win, it's because we're shooting 38% or above from beyond the arc. Well, that's pretty problematic when you don't have a single shooter in your starting six players, the six players that are playing starter minutes, that shoots 38% on the season. That's a big issue. And what we saw, the Spurs game wasn't as bad, but against the Knicks, we shot a lot of three-pointers. I don't remember exactly how many we shot, but it was quite a few. Against the Clippers game, I'll go back to that one that was right before the new year. We shot 42 three-pointers, and we made 4 of them. I mean, at some point in time, as a team, and I was like I said earlier, it's hard to talk about individual games. When we look back over the course of the season, this is very much a trend with Boston, and we lose games because we're out there jacking up threes. We're running a 3-point centric offense. I mean, I think it's very hard to argue the fact that Boston is very much a team whose offense is centered on the 3-point shot. And we don't have good 3-point shooters. So I don't think, with that said, we get, all the motivational issues and the lack of focus and coaching problems and the borderline asinine rotations that we've seen from the coaching staff, all of that aside, if you are a team that has built your offense around the 3-point shot and you don't have good 3-point shooters, it's going to be very hard to have a winning record, And fans can love or hate the 3-point shot. I know. I hear people all the time like, "Oh, the 3-pointer is ruining the NBA." All that crap. Fine, whatever. The fact is that to be a successful team in the modern NBA, you have to be able to shoot the 3-point shot. You have to be able to run a 3-point centric offense because that's what other people are doing. And when you have teams out there that are shooting, in that 38% range, 36 to 38% as a team, well, it's going to be hard to beat those teams if you're not in that category. And that's a big issue for Boston, and I think that's one thing we can see throughout the course of the season. They have to figure something out, and I've seen some fans who have said like, "Oh, well, we just need to go to a 2-point centric offense," but we don't really have a great lineup to be an inside scoring offense either. We don't really have a physical big that can dominate in the paint. Time Lord's very good. He's a hyper efficient scorer, but it's going. I mean, there's only so many times you could run and pick and roll that ends with the alley-oop in a game. And that's really how Time Lord gets the majority of his points, is all those, the ones where he rolls in, he beats his man, he gets the alley-oop pass, he dunks or lays it in. That's a lot of his points. You can't have an offense that is centered on that. It's not going to work at the modern NBA. Maybe if we were trying to make like an exhibition team, it would work. We could get some fans in there to watch it, but it's not going to win us a championship. And so I think that's a major problem with Boston. Our offense isn't there, and with the way the NBA is now, it's an offense-centric league. I mean, defense is important, don't get me wrong, but the NBA is a league where offense beats defense, and it beats defense consistently. Good offense will beat good defense consistently in the NBA. obviously you want to have both. And most championship teams do have very good defenses, but offense is really where championships have won in the NBA. And our offense is frankly terrible, and it doesn't make sense because we have designed an offense like we're a perimeter floor spacing team, but then we don't have the spacers to make it work. And that kind of leads me into, talking about rotations. And, we could look at almost every game and we could see a lot of questionable rotations. And sometimes we get away with it. I mean, like we got away with it against Orlando. I mean, so congratulations. We could run bad rotations against a rebuilding team and win. I mean, that's great. I'm sure we could probably get away with bad rotations against some of the G League too. It doesn't mean the rotations make sense. And I go back to the Knicks game, the one that we lost, and we're looking at fourth quarter crunch time. The Knicks are closing the gap. You really need to not only get defensive stops, but you need to put the ball through the hoop and get some points of your own to keep widening out that lead. And Udoka runs out a lineup with, what was it, Smart, Schroeder, Tatum, Horford, and Time Lord.
Yes.
That is what they had. That's what they had in the fourth quarter. And I think if you put the four of us, once Kev gets here, if the four of us went out there on the court with Jason Tatum, I think we'd provide about as much of a 3-point threat as that lineup did. And I'll tell you right now, I can't shoot layups, so I'm not going to hit a 3-pointer. But then again, neither is Time Lord, so I just take his spot. One of you guys will hit something, probably more consistently than Smart does anyway. Obviously that's hyperbole, but as a head coach, what are you doing? You put out a lineup that has no threat from the perimeter, and you can see the Knicks had no fear of the perimeter shot. They were collapsing in. They were paying basically notional attention to our perimeter shooters, because who are you afraid of? You're afraid of Dennis Schroeder lighting you up from behind the 3-point arc? He was the best 3-point shooter out there, except for Tatum.
Andy, I want to point out before I forget one crucial mistake, in my opinion, that Ime Udoka did on that very game was not calling one of the, but in my opinion, crucial. Listen to this. 98-96, we are leading. The fourth period clutch time. Now, it was 1 out. He didn't ask for a challenge. On the repeat recording, it was clear that the ball was out from the leg of Mitchell, if I'm correct, Robinson Mitchell, their center. And the call was the Knicks ball. So the Knicks are having ball. The next attack, I think they are scoring 3, I think Fournier, and then they are taking the lead, 99-98. So it was like pivotal point. So he didn't ask for a challenge. Okay, you would say he didn't see it, but he's having like 6 assistant coaches at the bench. What the hell they are doing there? If I notice here from Serbia, how the hell they didn't notice there? You're calling the challenge.
So some of those things, like something like that, I am, if that happens every now and then, I'm willing to write that one off to being a new head coach. It is what it is. New head coach, he's going to miss calls. What's problematic for me, the thing I guess with the rotations and the fact that this team never looks like they've even looked at a scouting report, is that stuff. That's not new head coach issues. Like as a coach, from the high school level, and I can say this because I coached high school football, from the high school level on up, you learn to watch game film. You learn to create, for lack of a better word, a briefing, but you create, a scouting report on the opposing team, and you share that with your players, and you say, hey, from a football perspective, number 12. Number 12 has a very fast release off the line, but he always releases and jukes to his right on the release. And you develop things like that, and you coach your defenders so that they understand what is going to happen and how they're going to counter that. And so what's inexplicable to me is, like, we all know Evan Fournier is a good 3-point shooter. We never knew he was 41 points good. I I guess we could be happy, a year later, Boston has made him a better player. But, Evan Fournier, why are you going underneath the screen? Like, I don't understand. That's something that should have been in the scouting report. That's something that should have been drilled into the defenders. Like, you don't go under the screen on a guy like Evan Fournier. And yeah, Fournier made some great shots. He made some very, very tough shots I don't think he could normally make. But the thing is, when you let a shooter get into rhythm, because you're going under screens and giving them wide open looks, once a good shooter gets 3, 4, 5 3-pointers to go in, most of them are going to stay hot for most of the rest of the game, unless you put like a lockdown defender on them to really throw them off their rhythm. Once a shooter gets going, they're going. And in the NBA, it's very hard to stop somebody, a good shooter, once they get ahead of steam. And so it's stuff like that doesn't make sense to me. Like the whole double big with Schroeder and Smart, like what is that? Like it makes no sense to me. And I think some of it's probably dictated by personnel. And Ime wants to be a great defensive team. I get that, and you're putting your best defenders on the court, but you're putting your best defenders on the court and basically sacrificing probably about 60% of your offensive potential. And in a league that's dominated by offense, it's just not worth it. Like the math here doesn't really add up. And yes, I know Time Lord is a really efficient inside scorer. That's he's an amazing scorer inside. And yes, I know Horford can space, but like I said, he's been having one of his worst years from beyond the arc this year. And at some point in time, I'm saying that like you have to sacrifice in the NBA. If you're making a choice, normally you would sacrifice defense for offense, just because that's how the league works. And it's because of the pace of the game and because of the rules that make it easier for shooters. So I don't understand why we sacrifice so much offense for defense, especially when we're not defending well. So, like if we were playing lockdown defense and the other team couldn't get anything going, yeah, sure, I understand. Leave Schroeder, Smart, Horford, Time Lord in there. But you have a guy who's lighting us up for 41 points on 10 3-pointers. You're not playing great defense. Maybe you're defending the rest of the guys all right, although I don't think they really were. I think, we were just benefiting from the fact that nobody else on the Knicks team is really a good offensive player. And so and that's what's kind of baffled me this season is every game, it seems like, every time we lose anyway, and every game, it seems like somebody just gets hot and has a career night against us. So we're not a good defensive team, because if you're a good defensive team, you're making everybody on the other team work for their baskets, and we're just not doing that. And against Indiana, I'm waiting to see who lights us up from beyond the arc, or if we're just going to get dominated by Sabonis inside. Because even if Time Lord and Horford are both healthy, what's our answer to Sabonis inside, outside of collapsing a second defender in and leaving somebody open on the perimeter? If Indy decides to go double big with Turner and Sabonis, I think we're going to have a really tough time matching up with that. So, once again, and I'll be interested to see how we play. Indiana is not a good team. Like, let's get that clear going into this series of games. The Pacers are not a good team, but they're good enough to beat good teams. Like they beat the Jazz, so you can't take them for granted. And so I'm kind of interested to see what happens with Boston here and how we're going to match up, because I don't think playing Tatum and expecting him, to score 30 plus points while defending Sabonis or Turner, I don't think that's going to be a really great solution. And I'll say that about Jason Tatum. People criticize Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum had a really good second half against the Knicks in that loss. Very, very good game. He probably should have had 2 or 3 assists that, they were great passes, good reads. The shooter couldn't make the shot because, you're throwing the ball to a bunch of guys who shoot under 33% from beyond the arc. So, hey, but, I look at, I don't think Tatum's really been the problem. I mean, he didn't have a bad night in the win against the Knicks. That's why I kind of disagree with Perkins. Tatum didn't put up big numbers, but Jalen was having a great night. And Tatum was efficient. He was pretty efficient from the floor. And that's really, he's not going to have a big night every night. And the other problem is the amount that we expect from him and Jalen is ridiculous. It's absolutely ludicrous what the franchise and the fans expect from these two. They want the expectation that fans of the franchise have is that Tatum and Brown are both going to be 30-point per game scorers who play elite defense on the other end all night long and act as the primary facilitators on the team. There's nobody in the NBA who does that. LeBron James doesn't do that. So when we say that the Jays aren't working out or they're not good, they're not living up to expectations. Well, yeah, nobody's going to live up to that expectation because nobody can do all of those things. Not every single night through a long season. And at some point in time, this franchise has to get help for them. And we have to get help on multiple levels. We have to get a 3-point specialist who can take a little bit of the offensive load off of them. We have to get a playmaker because neither one of those guys is a playmaker. Like, naturally, they're both scorers, which is fine. But you need to get a playmaker to make the game easier for them. And, I don't agree with trading off or breaking up the Jays because we've never seen them on a team that was actually built for them. There's never been a Celtics team that was built to maximize Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as the centerpieces. Instead, what we've had is like Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and they're a very talented duo. And then we're just going to kind of go to like the thrift store and shop in the bargain bin to find guys to fill out the roster around them. And maybe they sort of make sense, but they don't really make sense. And but hey, they were pretty cheap. So we're under the luxury tax. And that's not building a team around two young superstars. That's bargain basement shopping and trying to coast on their talent. And that's not going to be a sustainable solution. Like, at some point in time, this team and this ownership has to go and spend the money to go and get a third star and go and get one or two quality role players. By quality role players, I don't mean people like Josh. And Josh Richardson has done better this season than he did last season, but it means going and getting some quality role players that weren't pushed out of the starting lineup on other teams. Actually, Josh Richardson, I think, got pushed out of the rotation entirely in Dallas because he got supplanted by THJ and Jalen Brunson. That's not finding quality role players. That's, hey, we don't want to pay the luxury tax because we want to make more money. So, we're going to get this guy who had a decent name 3 years ago. We're going to throw him on the team, and fans should be happy about that. That's not going to work. We have to go out and actually find guys who are going to be contributing role players that can play a big role on a competitive team, and we have to find a third star who can help take some of that load off of the Jays. And until we do that, I'm not willing to trade either Tatum or Brown.
Okay, Danny, I know that you're busy. I will have my rant about the New York Knicks game, and I analyze like Andy, the shoots, the selection, the offense, the defense, not so much, but the mistakes were there also. For example, I noticed that our declining in the defense, Andy, started the last year. Do you know how? Because our 3-point defense started to decline and allowed 3-point percent to the opponent and allowed 2-point percent. They started to increase. 2 years ago, from the head, our opponents were shooting us 33 to 34% for three, and not the high range of field goals made. We limited opponents to, if I'm correct, 52% and less 2 points field goal percent 2 years ago. Now, the last season, that allowed 3-point percent to the opponents jumped to 36%, and 2-point percent allowed jumped into 54%. What I'm trying to say is that, like you noticed, we are not the defense that is based on the good paint defenders. Okay, you will say yes, but Time Lord, his blocking machine, and that kind of stuff. Time Lord, in my opinion, is just a tease. Sadly, because of the injuries, I'm afraid that we would have to look to another solution down the line on the center position, but that's another subject. Our defense is primarily based on overcrowding the perimeter and good three-point line defense. That was in Stevens' era. That was trademark. That's how we were top 5 in some defensive categories. Now in those categories, we last season, we started to slip down, and this year we are even worse in all those categories. Of course, we are bottom 10 in the defense and in every single category. That is how our defensive slip down started. Now I will offer you that, Andy and Danny and listeners and viewers, some metrics. Updated Boston Celtics fourth period metrics. Listen to this. Offensive rating Boston Celtics in the fourth period, 104, which is equal 26th in the league. Defensive rating is 112, which is equal 25th in the league. Updated net rating is minus in the fourth is minus 8.7, which is actually 29th in the league. Assist percent in the fourth period, 52.8% of the field goals made, which is exactly 27th in the league. Assists in the fourth period, 4.6, which is 29th in the league. True shooting percent in the offense in the fourth period is 52%, which is 24th in the league. And plus minus in the fourth is minus 1.9, which is 27th in the league. Why I'm reading to you all those informations? I don't want to overcrowd you with the data. So what does that mean? Aside from maybe Oklahoma City Thunder and Detroit Pistons, there is no team right now in the league that is worse closing team and fourth quarter team in the NBA. That's just the way it is. Now, is this coach? Of course. Is this the players? Of course also. Inexperience, but thanks to the lineups that Andy mentioned. Now, Andy, you mentioned the closing lineup. I mean, to that Knicks game, we played literally 7 to 8 players. I have one question to Ime Udoka that I don't think anybody asked him after the Knicks loss. Why didn't you dig deeper down to your bench? We assigned Aaron Naismith and Bruno Fernando to the G League tonight. So I wanted to ask him, why didn't you play Aaron Naismith, Romeo Langford, even Bruno Fernando more down the stretches? He could not cause us more damage than Enes Kanter, I believe. But never mind. On the night back-to-back games in the regular season, you need to dig deeper in your bench and to make rotations bigger. You cannot play playoff rotations in the back-to-back games. That is mistake, in my opinion. About the lineups, you're correct, Andy. I mean, listen, Marcus Smart, Dennis Schroeder, Jason Tatum, who else? Jaylen Brown or Time Lord plus Al Horford. That is our lineup, okay? I mean, couple of players more. Grant very little, Romeo very little, and those were our rotations at the Knicks game. Why? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? I mean, listen. I mean, it is not like playoff game. What are you trying to do? And the lineups that Andy was talking. Listen, we were playing like he said, Marcus Smart, Dennis Schroeder, then Dennis Schroeder in the corner, Marcus Smart at the shooting guard, Jason Tatum at the point guard, another corner, if I'm correct, Horford and Time Lord. Listen, Horford was shooting bad lately from the threes. He was struggling. Time Lord is non-shooter, like Andy said. Dennis Schroeder, I don't know, 32, 33% shooter at best. I mean, Marcus Smart, 31, 32% for three in his career. And you're letting Jason Tatum dribble. And by the way, when you look at the Celtics offense, you will notice we took very long to enter our offensive sets. We are dribbling. And when you look at the possessions, 8 seconds of the clock just wasted. Why? And then, for example, two players are coming into pick to Jason Tatum. In one attack in the fourth period against the Knicks, I noticed, for example, Time Lord came in the horn sets. Time Lord came from the one side, and Marcus Smart came from the other side. Jason Tatum dribbled, 8 seconds. Then he waited. Then he used one pick with the Time Lord. Then the Knicks rotated to that. And then he came to the right side, and he used Marcus Smart pick also. And when he finished that set, so he used the both picks. And when he finished using both picks of Time Lord and Smart, it was 20 seconds at the clock. And it ended like Dennis Schroeder taking a bad shoot. What it is. And in that possessions that we were talking about, I mean, Marcus Smart took open shoot, because the defenses will welcome Marcus Smart, Dennis Schroeder, Time Lord, even Horford in the bad form to beat them. They will say, yeah, beat us from outside. We will give you those shoots, because those guys are non-shooting guards. I mean, average shooters at their best. Marcus Smart can be sporadically a good shooter, but he's not shooting guard. He's not a good shooter. Now, the other problem is you will ask me, whom are you going to put instead of Marcus Smart? I don't know, but make a change. Change something. Like he said.
If it's me and I have to make a decision on who I'm playing, it would be Smart at point guard. Well, I mean, obviously Pritchard was sick and out, but I would play Smart and Pritchard because Pritchard can stretch the floor. I would do that, or I would do Smart, Josh Richardson. I would not play Dennis Schroeder and Marcus Smart together. It doesn't work.
Of course. I mean, and Andy, the people are saying, well, the young guys are not reliable. Of course, they are not reliable because you're not playing them. And that's another totally subject. I don't want to interrupt. We are breaking down our offense. And I mean, we're wasting too much time. We lack of the true point guard. And I mean, listen, with those double big lineups with Time Lord and Horford, I forgot to say, you are clogging the paint to the penetrations of Marcus Smart, Dennis Schroeder, and especially Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They are good in penetrating and drawing the easy baskets around the rim. But with the double big lineups, you are clogging the paint. You're clogging the paint. We will give the word to Kevin, of course. So, I mean, to cut the story, I mean, in the fourth period of the Knicks game, that we made Andy 6 field goals. Tatum made 4, if I'm correct. We attempted 13 threes, and Marcus Smart attempted like 6 threes alone. This is not good basketball, and this is not winning basketball. And again, we are playing like sub 500 team, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know what is the solution. The solution is, of course, a little smarter lineups, I would say. Now we are healthy. We don't have excuse for being healthy. But like Andy said, we are not good shooting team. we are playing 3-point centric offense because we don't have interior threat, but at the same time, we are not good shooting team. Andy will find later if he can the percentages of our guys, but we are not good 3-point shooting team, and this way you're not going to maximize Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And finally, I agree with you, Andy, that we should not break up Jays right now. Listen, I'm not against trading Jaylen Brown, for example, or Jason Tatum. My problem is that we would not get equal value in return. Okay, we would downgrade in talent. The ceiling of the team will be lower if we trade, for example, Jaylen Brown for Domantas Sabonis. They say if you do that, in my opinion, the ceiling of this team would be lower, and get the true point guard. And I mean, do not break up Jays. I agree with that with Bill Simmons. It's one rare thing that I agree with Bill Simmons. And about the other things, little later. Kevin, how are you? And please speak, my brother.
Hi guys, it's been a minute. I'm 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 flabbergasted with this team right now. It's just like we talked in the chat room. I swear, I think they're quietly trying to tank. I really do. I really think they're quietly trying to tank to try to add a piece to get the piece that they really want to come to be the third person on this team, whoever that may be, because we don't know. I don't know if I told you this earlier, but Scal does a radio show on the NBA network, and I called in and I asked him. I said, you're saying that Boston should trade Schroeder. I said, so what should they get back? He says, I don't know. So he's close to the team, and he doesn't know. The team doesn't know. They really have no identity whatsoever what direction they want to go in. I agree that both the Jays should not be traded. And there was a comment, and I actually I watched the game last night. Because I know he's doing a show. If it wasn't for the show, I wouldn't have watched the game. I swear, I'm just sick of them. But they was complaining about Jaylen having all those assists, and none of the assists went to Tatum. But the reason why the assists didn't go to Tatum is because Tatum is getting double teamed. It would be the same thing if Tatum had the ball, Jaylen's getting double teamed. So every team out there know that you got to stop one or the other. And if you can stop one, then you should be fine, because we don't really know who the third person is on that team's going to step up and be that third guy. I thought Grant could be that third guy from the 3-point line. But I don't know. It's just a lot of inconsistencies with this team, and I don't even know where to begin to talk about them, where to begin to explain them. I swear they remind me.
Maybe to mention Bob Cousy.
Well, yeah. Well, Bob Cousy said. Let me say, Bob Cousy, he criticized. He said, "I don't see the 18th banner no time soon." Okay, and I feel the same way too, because what they're missing is they have nobody in that organization right now to understand what it is to be a Celtic. And I think that's what they're missing. I think they're missing. I would love to see Paul Pierce come back and be part of the
championship gene.
Exactly. That's what I would love to see come back there and just sit down and talk to the guys. And I'm gonna go back on something I did with my freshman basketball team this year. I explained to them that putting that uniform on is pride. To be a Harrisburg Cougar, to wear the black and gray, it takes pride, and you're set at a higher standard. And a higher standard is that you go to class, you good grades, you don't be a dummy, you don't be a hall walker, you don't be a skipper. You do what you gotta do because you're set at a higher standard. I said to them, I was the first 7th and 8th grade team that Harrisburg High ever had. We went 16-4. The 4 teams we lost to, we were 7th and 8th graders. The 4 teams we lost to all had 9th grade teams. They were all 9th grade teams because they didn't have a 7th and 8th grade. So there was 9th graders that we played against, we lost against, right? But I said to them, none of our players was ineligible. None of our players were hall walkers. All of us had good grades. So you have to take pride in that. It's not a given. It's a privilege to wear that uniform. And that takes me to the Celtics. Is I think there's a privilege to put that uniform on. If there's nobody around to tell you how great teams were in the past, then you don't get an understanding of it. You can look up in the rafters all you want to, but somebody need to come back and say, yo, play with this right here. Play with some heart. Play 48 minutes with this type of heart. And at the end of the game, you'll be in the game at the end. Now, it's left up to you to win or lose the game, but you'll be in it at the end because your pride is going to allow you to do the things that you need to do. If that team would take on the persona of Marcus Smart defensively, we would be in almost every game. Every game. As much as he drives everybody crazy about how he shoots and whatever else he does, he does so many little small things, and they kind of make up for it. But I don't see that from this team. This team is not very consistent at doing it 48 minutes a game. You got 82 games to do this for 48 minutes. That's all we're asking you to do is we as fans are saying, give us 48 minutes of your best basketball. And at the end of the night, I guarantee you'll be in it to win it. You know, but this team is not good enough to turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it off. And that's why when I went back and I saw the score of the Knicks game, and I looked at the box score, and I was like, what did they do that third quarter? The third quarter has been a problem for us for the longest time, and we need to fix that some kind of way. Even when we had Gordon Hayward, Kyrie, the third quarter had always been an issue for us. It was never an issue when KG and Paul Pierce played. It's something that came along with these other guys. Okay. And so as fans, only thing we asking you to do is give us 110%, you know, and again, we still have not seen the full team, you know, cause, Pritchard was hurt or he was sick, you know what I'm saying? I want to see the full team, full complete team. And the only reason I watched the game last night, because I thought Pritchard was playing. I was like, okay, they got everybody they need. And they still struggled against that team last night that had missed 8 players. So it's all about desire. I'm giving you the Baltimore Ravens, for example. Them guys have lost so many players this season, but they play to win the game. They never give up. I mean, they just lost to Pittsburgh 13-10 or 16-13 in overtime. But if you look at how many guys is on their IR from the beginning of the season, starting with the running backs, this team struggled all year long, but they never gave up any games. Their fans knew they was going to give them a good game all the way to the end. And that's all we asking for the Boston Celtics to do that. Just play the game the way the game's supposed to be played. Play it with fun. Do not dribble with 8 seconds left on the clock. Then you pass the ball to somebody else and you want them to shoot the ball. You know, get away from the isolation play. I mean, the pick and roll, and I'm going to say this. I think if Robert Williams can get a jump shot at the foul line, that makes this team a whole lot better. And when he's at that foul line area, when he runs that pick and roll, there's a foul, he got the ball, he's looking already to pass. So his man's off of him. So I think if he takes the shot sometimes, even if he miss it, he takes it. So that defender got to come out. You know what I'm saying? But Igor, I agree with you too, with Al Horford and him both clogging the paint up. Now you don't give the Jays opportunity to go to the basket. So
No
I'm
spacing.
like, I mean,
No spacing.
Al Horford
Geometry
wouldn't
in
have
the offense.
Al Horford wouldn't have a problem saying, yo, I wouldn't mind coming off the bench. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he would have a problem with that. You know, if you would go with Grant Williams at the 4 spot, Jason, Jalen, and Marcus, now you got one guy who consistently can shoot the 3, but somebody has to watch Grant. Jason and Jalen can do what they gotta do. And if Marcus hits his little tweeners here and there, and Rob just picks up a jump shot instead of just every time it get an alley-oop dunk. I mean, that makes the team look a whole lot different than what it is. We see what they want from the team. We see what we want with that starting five, but they're not getting that, and the effort is not there every night.
I want to say, Andy, please, 1 minute about that geometry, because when you're playing double bigs, Kevin and guys, I mean, you're playing, for example, that diamond formation that is requiring the players to sit at the edges of the diamond. Okay, two from the side, two inside, one at the top, but as far as they can from each other's, not to clog the paint. But because Robert Williams is operating inside, because Al Horford he's operating more inside than outside. He was great in the first 20 games, then he was sliding in shooting threes. So practically that diamond formation is ruined, and you're clogging the driving lanes of the two best players, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's where they are at their best. So what the defenses are doing, because those two are clogging the paint, they are just overcrowding the paint, and they are letting our non-shooting guards to shoot. And that's the way how you defend Boston best. And when Jason Tatum get hot, you're sending the help, and you are double team or blitz Jason Tatum up the top, and you finished the job. Jaylen Brown, for some strange reason, is shooting very little in the fourth period. I don't know what it is. And final sentence, Kevin, at one attack at the Knicks game, I was watching. So Jason Tatum was playing like a playmaker, and they're playing like the horns set 1-2-2. So he's telling the guys to spread the floor, and Marcus Smart is going, pin down, coming off the pin down from the down up to the top. And he was cutting to the basket. But instead of cutting to the side with one player, he did cut to the side with the two players. So you have the offense with the point guard on one side, three players at the one side, and one player at the other side. And I was like, what the hell is that? Well, what the hell is that? 1-3-1 attack. I never saw that. So the players need to think better when they are doing their offense. Andy, please speak.
Yes, I think, like you said, I mean, having the double bigs clogs the paint. The other thing is people have really liked to criticize Smart this year. And yes, Smart has had his typical, Marcus Smart brain lapses throughout the season. But it's really, it's nothing new. It hasn't really been worse than it's been in any other year. The thing with Smart is right now he plays the third most minutes of anybody on the team. He's behind the Jays, next most minutes given to any player. And when you look at the players behind the Jays, who else is taking those shots? Because, people complain about Smart shooting. I think he has, I believe, the second most shots after the Jays on the team. I could be wrong about that. Let me look real quick. Let's see here. Yeah, so he has the fourth most shots of the team. He's after Dennis Schroeder has more shots than he does. But he's at 10 field goals attempted per game, which is really not terrible. It's not like he's shooting, 14, 15 shots per game. And the problem is if Smart's not shooting, who is shooting? Because, we've kind of alluded to this. Josh Richardson, Grant Williams, they don't really get consistent enough minutes to be worked in there as consistent every night features on the offense because their minutes inconsistent. So beyond that, Al Horford has had an awful season shooting from beyond. Marcus Smart shooting like almost 2 full percentage points better than him from beyond the arc. So by that metric, we want Smart taking the shots and not Horford. Schroeder isn't really much better. He's been better than Smart, but he isn't much better from beyond the arc. We're talking like 32% versus 29.9%. So, I mean, they're both awful from beyond, it's just varying degrees of bad. And then you have Time Lord, who really, like Kev said, and you said, Igor, his offense is one-dimensional. It's pretty much catch the ball in the air and slam it through the rim. That's the extent of Time Lord's. He's really good at doing it. Don't get me wrong. It's really fun to watch. But that's really the only thing the guy does on offense when it comes to scoring. So when you break it down, we can complain about Marcus Smart taking those shots all we want, but he's the only player who gets consistent minutes, that's available to take those shots. So, at what point do we start to ask it's not, I've said this, obviously we would love for Smart to somehow, get a lobotomy in the offseason and develop good judgment. But I think we could kind of write that one off. He's never going to have great judgment or great shot selection. It's just not who he is. But at what point do we, but we all know that. That's something like every single Boston fan that we know, if you ask them to categorize Marcus Smart's offense, they're going to say he shoots really bad shots. That's every single Boston fan out there, from Boston itself all the way to like a small village in the Philippines. Everybody knows that, So how is it that every fan knows that, and somehow the coaching staff seems to be like blissfully unaware? You guys work with the guy every single day. How are you not aware that Marcus Smart is A, a streaky shooter, and B, will jack up the absolute worst shots known to man? I can't think he just does that at games. I'm pretty sure he probably does it in practice too. He probably walks into the gym and underhand throws the ball across the freaking court to try to get into the hoop or something at the start of each practice. I don't know. And so why aren't we playing guys like Josh Richardson or Grant Williams, guys who are actually hitting their three-pointers this season? Why are we not playing them in a consistent role on the offense? I'll give it to you in a minute, Kevin. And letting them get that consistent role where they can be incorporated as a major part of the offense. As a coach, at some point in time, that has to cross your mind. Maybe I should be playing the guy who's shooting 40% from beyond the arc instead of the guy who's shooting 29% from beyond the arc. At some point in time, the math there has to jump out and slap you in the face. But it doesn't seem like that makes an impression on the coaching staff here. And just to close it off, the last thing is, with Richardson and Grant Williams, I was just saying I was going to get the statistics on our best three-point shooters. Out of the three-point shooters on Boston, the three best three-point shooters we had this season were Jabari Parker, Josh Richardson, and Grant Williams. Two guys who don't get consistent minutes night to night and don't have a consistent defined role in the offense, and the guy that we just let go. And those are our three best shooters. So, buckle up, Celtics fans. It's going to be a really, really fun ride. Go ahead, Kev.
I'm going to say this again. Come trade line, if Boston doesn't do anything, absolutely nothing, they tanking. I truly believe this. And if Boston could tank and be in the top, five, top 5, 6, or 7, whatever. Let's say they get the worst 7th. Okay, they can take that 7 with somebody on the team and send them somewhere else to get who they really want. We know that more likely is Bradley Beal who they want on this team. There's no two ways about it. I don't think Damian Lillard is on the radar because it doesn't match the time frame or the age frame of this team. Only other person I could think of other than Bradley Beal is the kid in Utah. Him and Jalen are really close friends.
Donovan
what's
Mitchell?
his name? Donovan Mitchell? Yes.
You really think that Danny Ainge would trade us Donovan Mitchell?
Wait a minute. Okay, what'd you say, Igor?
I said, do you really think that Danny Ainge would trade us Donovan Mitchell? He would ask for Jaylen Brown, for example.
Well, but now this is my thing, though. I think that Jaylen Brown would be the pawn in that move with a draft choice to get them maybe a point guard or maybe a really good shooting guard that could help this team. Because if we think about this, that's what we're really missing is a person, Evan Fournier. That's what we're missing. No ifs and buts about it. Somebody that can consistently hit the three more times than not is what we're missing. But again, like I said, I think Bradley Beal is a person on the radar. I think old boy out in Utah is on the radar. But if Boston doesn't make any moves at all during the All-Star break, then we can forget it, because they're not going to waste the energy to try to get into buy-in games or anything like that. They're going to play the season out, and wherever they end up. I just think that's what they're looking at, because they're not. None of the players we got right now are worth anything really a lot. We got draft picks, but still, if you look at our draft picks, and if we make a move, we're not going to be in the bottom half anymore, because we're making a move to be 1 through 5 easy. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're looking at. So our draft picks is going to be a high draft picks. So that's just that's my mind thought. That's my mind thought. I'm just thinking they're because there's no way a team like this can go through the motions as much as they go through the motions and not feel no pain. I mean, these guys it don't bother them. It really, to me, it don't seem like it bothers these guys to be up by 30 and lose. It just don't. I'm just saying it don't. It just don't. I don't know, man. Like Perkins said. He said I think they need to shake up somewhere from the top to the bottom, because everybody's a little bit too comfortable in where they're at and what they're doing. Udoka he probably got the coaching job by default, because that's who Jalen, Jason, and Marcus Smart wanted. Come to find out that he's not as good as we thought he was, because he keeps overtime. He keeps timeouts during a game when the game is on the line and we should have used these timeouts. His rotation is really questionable. They got rid of Jabari Parker yesterday, which I'm scratching my head at right there. I don't understand that at all. I've just thought everybody besides us three, I think, are thinking that Boston's going to do something great in the trade before the deadline to make them a 4 or 5 seed. I don't see it happening. They can't even win 3 games in a row this year. They can't even win 3 games in a row. And I said to him, I want to watch them again until they won 3 games in a row. You know, so there's something going on in that organization, and they just being mum about
I am still looking for. Maybe you guys want to continue. I'm still looking for the full text, Kevin, of what Bob Cousy said. And meanwhile, until I find it, you know. Until I find it, I want to ask you guys really quick, what do you think about Twitter drama? And by the way, our friend Nick Gelso, he entered into Kevin. What is this expression at the army? Hot rabbit. Treatment, you know, when everybody's hitting him on the Twitter, because he supported Kendrick Perkins in his clash with Jason Tatum. I mean, some after game comments, but never mind. Kendrick Perkins believes that Celtics should split Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I suppose that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are mad at Perkins because he said that. I'm still searching for say.
I'll just say I don't. I think Perkins. You know, like I like Big Perk. You know, he has his moments, but I mean, like, come on. There's a reason that he's, you know, a talking head on TV and not in a front office. I mean, let's just be, you know, let's just be clear about that. You know, I think the idea of trading off just to shake things up, that you would trade off a young superstar potential, I think that's crazy. Especially, I would feel differently if we had gone out and gotten Ricky Rubio and a big man and built a team around them, and they were still not playing well together, and the team still looked disjointed. Yeah, then I'd say, okay, let's consider trading Jason or Jalen. But we've never done that, and until we've built a team around them, it would be really inadvisable to trade one of them off, because I don't think that they're really the problem. I think the problem is, I mean, like I said, your number 3 guy is Marcus Smart. I mean, like, I think that kind of says everything. Like, what else do you need to say about problems on the team when Marcus Smart is your number 3 perimeter option? I mean, we don't really have a big man. I mean, Time Lord is injured so much. Al Horford is my age. My age going on Kev's age. And so, I mean, like, Jalen and Jason aren't the problem here. The rest of the team is a bunch of kids that probably would be deep bench players anywhere else because they haven't gotten developmental time. They have a new head coach, and I will say, in fairness to me, Kev, I never thought Udoka was that good a coach to start with, so I'm not that disappointed. I'm just, sadly unsurprised that he's showing that he's not a very good coach. I thought that Udoka got the job because Jalen and Jason wanted him, and because he was the guy who was available, who was the least likely to rock the boat. Yeah, I think that's kind of why he got the job. I think there's a reason we didn't go for somebody like Billups or, some of the more experienced head coaches out there who probably would have come in and rocked the boat a little bit more. Because, I mean, I think we can all kind of agree right now that the boat needs to be rocked pretty hard, and somebody needs to fall out into the shark-infested waters. And that's just kind of where we're at as a team. I do think they need to do a shake-up from the top down. I mean, I still to this day don't understand how Brad Stevens moved up to the front office. I just don't. I don't. How can you fail in one position? Like epically fail? Because let's fans forget the 18-19 team, when you took that team on paper with Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, Marcus Morris, Aaron Baines were your veterans. Brad Wanamaker was a veteran point guard. You had Terry Rozier, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. That was a championship team. That was probably one of the most talented teams in the NBA. I would argue that was probably the most talented team in the NBA outside of Golden State, in terms of the sheer talent that was on the roster. And Brad Stevens, and granted, Kyrie was obviously a huge part of that, because Kyrie Irving is probably the weirdest guy ever to dribble a basketball in the NBA or otherwise. But Brad Stevens screwed that team up. He mismanaged that team into the ground, into what I would say is probably the greatest seasonal collapse in Celtics history. And somehow 2 years later, you promote the guy? Like, that would be like if you worked at a corporation and you bankrupted half of the corporation. 2 years later, they're like, oh, let's make you CEO because you did so good. You did so good bankrupting us the first time. Let's just promote you and see what you do at a higher position. And that's what they've done. And look what we've got is, for the team. We have Jason Tatum, we have Jaylen Brown, we have Marcus Smart, who I like Smart. Smart's a great role player. If he's your sixth man who's coming in to give you defense, he's great in that role. And if he gets hot, every now and then he'll get hot from beyond the arc and drop, 10, 12 points. Great. He's a great role player. But he's not your number 3 option from the perimeter either. Not if you want to win something. And, beyond that, what do we have? We have a bunch of rookies that we took with like the 18th pick and on up, which, for fans who don't know, the 18th pick and beyond is, those are really throwaway picks. They're, you just kind of pick people that might maybe have potential and you hope you get lucky and draw, like a Draymond Green type player. But it's incredibly rare for that to happen. And then we have a bunch of guys who were cast off by other organizations. We have Dennis Schroeder, in fairness, he's had a great season with Boston. But like I said, he is not in LA right now because in the playoffs, he managed to basically completely disappear on offense. And then we have Josh Richardson, who got played out of the Dallas rotation by THJ and Jalen Brunson. Once again, he's having a good year, but, when your last season was getting played out of a rotation by Jalen Brunson, I mean, it's not that hard to have a better year, And then beyond that, we have Enes Kanter, who doesn't really fit well on our roster because Ime Udoka seems to think that he could sacrifice 90% of his offense for defense and still win. So obviously, if you're sacrificing offense for defense, you are not, you don't want to touch Enes Kanter or Enes Freedom, whatever he wants to call, whatever his last name is now. The biggest bit of freedom that Enes brings to the floor is freedom for the opposing offense. But so we have a bunch of guys who don't really make sense. And at what point in time do we look at the ownership too? It's like at what point in time are you going to spend the money to get us quality role players, not guys who are cast off by other teams, but guys who are quality and desired role players, guys that other teams actually want on their roster. Because a lot of these guys we're getting because guess what? Nobody else wanted them. But that like when you're taking the hand-me-downs from the rest of the NBA, that's not really a great way to build a championship team. So I don't know. You have the information you were looking for, Igor?
Igor, I got it right
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I found it. Dan Shaughnessy from Boston Globe. I will read it because it's really interesting. By the way, I must say one sentence before reading it. It is interesting about Kendrick Perkins and that kind of stuff. Listen, you don't have to agree whatever Kendrick Perkins is talking. I usually agree like 70-80%. Something I don't, but I think Kevin said or Andy that there is a reason why why he is the talking head at the NBA. He's paid to have his opinions, okay, and you don't have to listen to him. But I dislike that the Celtics fans now are going after him. You can love what he's talking or dislike what he's talking, but he is bottom line the Celtics champion, one of the rare that is still around the team, criticizing the team, trying to push up the team, and the Celtics fans acting like he doesn't have the right to say absolutely anything. Come on. And if Kendrick Perkins is not good enough for you to say opinion about the team, I hope that Bob Cousy, Celtics fans, is good enough to say some words about the Celtics. So Cousy is talking about Thursday they blew 25 points lead in New York. He said there is something wrong. Kuz said it's just a schoolyard. Run up and down and take the first shoot that shows. There doesn't seem to be intelligent direction. I think a stabilizing piece is missing. They usually fuck up in the fourth when you need to be paying attention to business. That's what he said. I had to bring it up back to the point guard, but you don't have the control there. We got lead usually 6 to 8 points. That was when I would take it home. I just would not allow us to lose the lead. From 90-57 to 90-63, I remember one game when I let it get away, the lead, and I took full responsibility. It was against Syracuse at Providence Arena. We had the lead 6 to 8 points and we blew it, and I feel bad about it. Good solid point guards are difficult to come by. We had one in Kyrie, but he was hard case. Then we got one, Kemba Walker, although Kemba was shooting guard more than point guard. You need penetrating point guard, and at that point who is a treat, and then he passes off to Tatum and to Brown. Listen, I love Marcus Smart, but I don't love him as a point guard. He thinks he's the best point guard, but he's not. But he still is positive factor. Right now, at the crunch time, the fourth period, they are giving it to Brown and to Tatum to create for themselves and to the others. So 70% of the time, Tatum and Brown and the crunch time will create for themselves, but they don't have the creating skills of the clever point guard, and so they fuck it up sometimes. So we are in the place in the fourth that one of the worst performances in the fourth period of all the teams. Tatum and Brown have great skills up the front, but they are not necessarily the skills of the good point guard. They should be a lot better than they are. It doesn't look like we are going to be hanging banner number 18 anytime soon. And Shaughnessy said, bring back Teeny Archibald to the team. So it was really really interesting words from Shaughnessy and Bob Cousy. I mean, he has point. He practically said, guys, what we hear, we're talking about the whole season. And it is not against Marcus Smart. It is not against Dennis Schroeder. We don't have the starting point guard of the championship team. I think personally that Marcus Smart should be in all NBA team every single year, and he should be in the competition for the best six man in the NBA every single year. The best six men. Dennis Schroeder, I love when he's running the offense in the second unit when we are going against opponents' second units. Listen, Dennis Schroeder, he will be a solid scoring option in the second units with opponents' second units, or when the opponents are running a combined lineup of three bench guys, two starters, or something like that. Dennis Schroeder is good penetrating scoring of the transition, around the rim, free throws. Sometimes he gets hot from the three-point line. I love it. I don't want Dennis Schroeder in the crunch time at the floor. He is losing the ball. He is doing stupid turnovers. He's shooting. The teams are not respecting him. They are, giving him 2 meters space away. And we just need another guy there. And again, Marcus Smart is positive factor. This is nothing against Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart is useful player, but he cannot be number 3 like Andy said. He cannot take like third most field goal attempts at the team. And it is not on Marcus Smart because, like Andy said, nobody is playing more than Marcus Smart aside from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So, he has the guts to take those shots. He's playing minutes and the ball is coming to him. So he's taking the shoots. And I don't have anything against Marcus Smart taking, open shoots. He should take open shoots. Just Marcus Smart cannot be go-to guy in the fourth. That's what my, that's what my thing is about Marcus Smart. And about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, again, I don't like Jason Tatum isolations at the fourth. We need to run the set. I mentioned, Kevin, maybe you was not there, dribbling until 8 seconds passes up the clock. I don't understand that. Dribble, then wait 8 seconds on the clock. Then Time Lord and Smart is setting him double screens, the horns, and he used one screen, then he come back and use another screen. So 20 seconds up the clock passes, he passed the ball to the Schroeder bricks the three. What is that? I mean, this is not organized offense. And I know that Ime Udoka showed some good Atos plays, out of the timeouts plays from Popovich, maybe, some solid plays. I mean, call the timeout, run the offense, run the offensive sets, do something. At least Brad Stevens was good in organizing, Atos. And I remember we won numerous games after Brad Stevens' ethos, especially in the first 5 years of Brad Stevens. So that's what we need. You don't need Bob Cousy on the floor. I mean, you can have Peyton Pritchard or Josh Richardson, but do not give me that lineup from New York Knicks of Marcus Smart, Dennis Schroeder, Jason Tatum, Time Lord, and Al Horford. I mean, this is probably third worst closing fourth quarter lineup according to the statistics, except maybe Oklahoma City Thunder lineup and Detroit Pistons lineup. I mean, that's why we are losing games in the crunch time. Kevin?
When you got back, when Cousy was talking about the point guard situation, and guys got to look back, and they got to look back at the history of the Celtics. And whenever the Celtics ever had a good team, they always had a smart point guard. You go with Bob Cousy. You had K.C. Jones. You had JoJo White. You had Tiny Nate Archibald. You had Gerald Henderson. And if you really think about all the point guards that Boston ever had, the only one that really wasn't a penetrating point guard was Dennis Johnson. But Dennis Johnson was really smart. He was a really smart guard, and they got him for defensive purposes because he didn't have to shoot because you had Kevin McHale, Art Parrish, and Larry Bird on the floor. So he really didn't have to shoot, but he made some critical shots. Okay. So you think about after Dennis Johnson, they had at point guards coming through. They had Kenny Anderson. They had Bagley come through there. They had a lot of name of point guards come through, but they just didn't have the rest of the team to build around them. Now you look at what they did with Rondo, whose basketball IQ is off the chart. And again, I think he's going to be a great coach when his time is up in the NBA. But they still have never had a chance to replace that point guard that Rondo was. Because if you look at it, when Rondo would score like 30 points or more, we would end up losing because that means they shut everybody else down. But they made him a shooter, which we know Rondo's not a shooter. So we know what we're missing. The rest of the NBA knows what we're missing, and nobody's going to give us that. Okay? Nobody's going to give us that point guard that we want because they know how we are. And again, if you look at the situation that Danny Ainge put the team in, you can't get mad at Danny Ainge again for being the person he was because he set him up for success. The Gordon Hayward situation didn't work out. The Kyrie Irving situation didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? And if you were to look back at history with the Celtics, the reason why they lose NBA championship games is because somebody got injured during that series, and they couldn't really make up for that person being injured. You know what I'm saying? You look at the situation with Perkins. Look at the situation with Kevin Garnett. He gets hurt his second year. You know what I'm saying? So injuries is a reason why they probably didn't win 3 back-to-backs. They didn't go back-to-back. But at the same token, though, as fans, we got to realize that we're missing that point guard. And the only way we might get that point guard is we have to draft him because nobody's going to give him up to us because they feel like you won enough titles. We're not going to give you anything for free. You got to give us something. And that's why we're here. Every time we hear a trade, we hear Jalen's name, we hear Marcus' name in there because they know that how bad do you really want a point guard? But if you get a point guard and you got to give up Jalen, then you're still defeating the purpose of bringing a point guard. I can see them maybe moving Marcus to get that point guard if that's what they're really looking for. You know what I'm saying? But now you're giving up defense. Now, if you're giving up defense, make sure that the person you get back can score points at bunches, that he's more of a scorer than he is a defender, and you're more worried about him as a scorer, not the defender. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see too many guys out like that. Like the kid that Andrew was in love with that was at Sacramento. I can't think of his name now. I think he's with Atlanta.
Halliburton.
No, not
or
him.
Wright.
DeLon Wright. Now, I watched him play a little bit, and I like his game. But I see why Andrew liked him, and I see how he would fit really good with Boston. But I don't even think Boston ever took a look at him.
I mean another thing. I want guys to comment me. Andy mentioned we lost. We cut Jabari Parker due to the cap flexibility and open roster spot, according to the Celtics beat writers. I don't know the sum. I can find the sum. I think Keith Smith said something like we saved like 1.6 millions or something by waiving Jabari Parker. It was stunning to me why we did it, and I think John Karalis. I wrote part of the article. I'm not subscribed to the Boston Sports Journal, and I copy pasted the page, and of course I got penalized from the Celtics fans. One of the fans defending the Celtics moves at the edges of the roster. The article of John Karalis is costly Celtics mistakes around the edges of the roster. And he mentioned that Jabari Parker, he was not given opportunity, despite he has been top 3 shooters outside the Celtics team, like he said. Then Celtics open roster spot for Jabari Parker, cutting Garrison Matthews. Garrison Matthews shooted more than 150 threes for Houston as a starter, and he is shooting frequency of 6.8 threes, and he's scoring 37.3%. So he became really good shooter there. Max Strus, another guy, we saved Taco Fall and cutted, I was informed, cutted Max Strus to save Taco Fall. I have nothing against Taco Fall, and here is Jabari Parker cap hit. Jabari Parker will be $1.06 million, and that brings Boston to total dead money in the books for the Parker this season, 1.168 millions. So it's he was partially guaranteed. He played Parker only 100 minutes on the rosters. 112 minutes this season, 112 minutes. What we are doing at the edges of the roster is puzzle to me. I'm not going to talk about the tax implications. It is going to my nerves that everything we are doing is tax driven to save the money of our owners. That's another story. But I want to ask you guys, what the hell we are doing at the edges of the roster? We cut Parker, Garrison Matthews excel, Max Strus had like 25 points in the win of, like I said, in the win of Oklahoma, in the win of Miami Heat against Portland Trail Blazers. Max Strus scored 25 points with 7 made threes. Javonte Green is playing solidly. We cut Javonte Green. So what are we doing at the edges of the roster?
Money. We're saving money for the owners. Everybody knows COVID has hit rich people hard. Okay, they got to save some money. All right, come on. If it takes the team, who cares? White can still go out and get his expensive dinners out on Beacon Hill or wherever it is. I mean, that's the thing to me is we're not paying. Like I said, quality role players. Now, I think Jabari Parker, granted, his defense is awful. He was probably the worst defender of the team, possibly including Cantor. But if you take Parker, and granted, once again, we have a very small sample size to go off of because he didn't play a lot of minutes. Yep. But last season, if you take him in per 36, and obviously using somebody who plays very limited minutes and going to per 36 is susceptible to outliers. However, he was about a 16 to 17 point per game player with 9 rebounds and a very efficient 16 to 17 points per game. Now, for a team that lacks offense, because if you look at Parker's effective field goal percentage, of course, once again, very limited, small sample size, the guy has a 57.9% effective field goal percentage, which I think would have been the best on the team except for Time Lord. So when you consider that, and consider the fact that he was basically 9 rebounds per game in 36 minutes of play, to me, it just doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. This is a team that can't buy a bucket for whole stretches of the game, despite the fact that they throw everything, including the kitchen sink at the basket. They can't sink a basket to save their lives. You have Parker, who is a guy who, like we saw in limited minutes, he could come in off the bench and he could drop 2-3 baskets, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and he could make them in like 3 to 4 minutes, which, I mean, we're a team that manages to go cold for like 7 or 8 minutes at a time. That's what we needed on this team. And I understand his defense is awful. Like, I get that. Totally understood. But defense, but the NBA is an offensive-centric league. I've said that multiple times tonight. It's an offensive-centric league.
It's hit or miss league. In the words of Doc Rivers.
Well, you can play with a guy who is a turnstile on defense, but can go up on the other side of the court and consistently hit buckets. You can play with that. You can't play with a bunch of guys who can't hit a basket between the 5 of them for 6 minutes straight. Well, meanwhile, they're going under screens on 3-point shooters and letting those shooters get open. I don't understand that. I don't get that. It's like we built a team for the 1960s NBA. Except we somehow forgot to put in a physical big man. But hey, but that seems like to be the type of sport we want to play. The double big lineups, the guards who can't shoot. It's like we completely missed the part of the NBA where we went to space and pace, right? I mean, and that to me is what doesn't make sense about this team, and that's what doesn't make sense to me about cutting Jabari Parker. Is that the guy is a turnstile on defense. We weren't looking for him to play 36 minutes per game, but maybe play him for 15, 20 minutes when the team goes cold. We put him in there and let him score 6 points real quick for us. Let him take some of that pressure, because when Jabari Parker's on the floor, it's a lot harder to double team Jalen and Jason, because Parker is a guy who can score on all 3 levels. His 3-point shooting was abnormally good this year, but with guys like that, ride their hot streak while you can. You couldn't defend, you couldn't double off of him, because he knew he was a natural scorer. He was probably the only other natural scorer on that team. And so if you double off of him for Jalen or Jason, he's going to take that ball and take it to the hoop and play it and score. And that's what we've really needed. And so to me, we let him go for what, $1.5 million? And I don't know, that must have gotten Mike like probably a good 3-4 months worth of steak dinners on Beacon Hill. I don't know what the going price for steak on, up there is now. But, and to me, that's what it is. It's like we're constantly trying to save money. I've wondered if maybe it's backlash from the Patriots, because, everybody knows that one thing that Bill Belichick is praised for is his ability to manage his salaries and, stay under the cap and, balance out his salary. But this is the NBA. It's not the NFL. Very, very different in terms of cap management. And with an NFL roster, you have like 50 people. You can afford to take guys that are only good at one thing. Because you have 50 guys, you can afford to take a guy who's only good at defending slant routes, because, you have enough space on your roster. The NBA, you don't have that. You can't build budget teams in the NBA. And I feel like that's what we've done. We've built these budget teams. And then we're wondering why the team that we got at Costco can't compete with the team that, with the team from Louis Vuitton. It's like, I don't, it's like we're acting surprised that this doesn't work. But it shouldn't be surprising to anybody. We went to Costco. We bought the Costco bargain bin players for our role players. Other teams went to the boutiques. They got the high-quality boutique role players. Well, no kidding, our guys are getting outplayed every night. And that's why Smart's the number 30 option from beyond the arc, because we went to the bargain bin. And so in the bargain bin, you don't find good 3-point shooters, because the modern NBA is all about 3-point shooting. So you're not going to find a good 3-point shooter in the bargain bin. And that's the problem with this team. So now we've let Jabari Parker go, who I wanted to see Parker play more power forward, move Tatum to small forward, because I think we have a serious shortage of players at that power forward position. Because, I mean, Time Lord's really a center. Horford's really a center. Tatum can play power forward in a small lineup, but he's really probably better at small forward considering how much we ask him to do. On the offensive end, it's kind of hard to ask him to play power forward defensively. Grant Williams is a power forward, but he struggles against bigger or more athletic power forwards. Grant Williams, he has good positioning. He understands defense pretty well. I think his defensive IQ is fine. But, I mean, if you've ever watched a guy, he has no vertical. He has, like, Tom Brady's vertical, which I don't really get that. Like, how do you play basketball with the vertical of Tom Brady? But, and that hurts him. Like, because you'll see a lot of times he knows when the shot's coming. He gets his hand up, but his feet is still both flat on the floor. And so because he's undersized as well, people just shoot over him. And I think that Grant Williams would be an elite defender if he could get just a little bit of a vertical where he could get off his feet and challenge those shots a little bit more. But, right now the problem is, and we saw this with Embiid too, I mean, Grant Williams was holding his own against Joel Embiid at points. He's strong enough to do it. But then Embiid realizes the kid has no vertical, so he just turns around, just kind of over his head. And that's I guess, so really we have one power forward, or two halves, I guess, make a whole power forward, maybe, I guess, because, like Tatum's half a power forward, Grant Williams is half a power forward. So put them together, we have a whole one. Jabari Parker was actually a power forward. He was a power forward who could space the floor. And yes, like I keep saying, his defense is awful. But, at some point in time, especially when we're looking in the bargain bin, because we had Parker on, basically a giveaway, a throwaway contract. I mean, like, it was costing us really nothing, except, however, I don't know if maybe, is into strippers or something, and he, the price of strippers has gone up, or what the deal is down there in the Boston area. I have no idea. But he wasn't costing the team anything. And here's the guy, and he had the potential to really kind of fill a need that we had, both at the power forward position and in terms of a guy who could go in there and get you some points when you need them. And we let him go. Now, maybe the roster space, maybe Stevens has some mastermind trade in the works, and we're all going to look like idiots for criticizing this move because he's going to make this massive trade and the season's going to turn around. We're going to hang banner 18 and form a dynasty. Maybe that's the case, but I find that to be relatively unlikely. If we stand pat and don't make a big trade and don't bring somebody in and we let Jabari Parker go, I'm going to kind of sit there and like, what was the point to this? So I guess that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know if what other people think about Parker, but
I just want to say, then he disappeared again. I mean, I don't understand what we are doing because, and what it is. I was arguing to one man, and listen to this at the page. His name is not important. He was defending the position of the team. I said, okay, why did we cut Parker? I said everything that you said. He was useful. He didn't cost us. He was the third scorer. He filled the need. He's one true power forward spacing four that we needed besides from Horford, and Horford is old, cannot play that the whole season. Why did we cut him? But to save flexibility and a roster spot for the improvement. Okay, let me see that improvement. Why did we let Garrison Matthews go? And how Garrison Matthews can play in Houston and score 37% for threes, shooting 7 threes per game, and we desperately miss shooting, and we cannot play him here. How Max Strus is playing in Miami and he cannot play here in Boston? Why did we cut Javonte Green? Why are we wasting all those cheap guys that can help us? How those guys can play in Houston, in Miami, in Chicago, and they cannot play in Boston? What is wrong with
because those teams
Boston?
develop them. That's why. Because those
Yes,
teams develop
yes,
them, and we
yes,
don't develop
yes,
people. That's the
yes,
problem for Boston.
yes,
I mean,
yes, yes.
Boston plays a role in the players' development. Don't get me wrong. You go to the Celtics, and then you go to another team, and you play better. So I don't know exactly what we do, but we're definitely a step there. We're just a step where they don't play well, and that's on the team's development. So I mean, that's what that is.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we need shooting. Max Strus last night scored 25 points, 7 threes. He played for us in the summer league. We cut him to preserve the spot for Taco freaking Fall. Everybody of us, did you believe that Taco Fall will become the next Bill Russell, like majority of our fans at the page? I didn't. I mean, we all knew that he had marketing potential, but that's for main red clause. Why didn't we sign Taco Fall to main red clause and saved Max Strus, for example? That is cheap, and like Andy said, to give the man the freaking chance. It's not like we are the best team at the Eastern Conference, so we cannot play the young guys. We must play the young guys because, we are not in the good position. We are wasting the young guys, we are wasting picks, we are wasting opportunities. And that's it. I don't want to go any further in that, but we are making mistakes at the edges of the roster. Danny, do you have something to say, or do we have Kevin? No. So hope that Kevin will join us for the last words. Danny, your words about the state of the Celtics and the games against Indiana.
Well, when it comes to the state of the Celtics, you guys, you couldn't be better. You got two players that we all know can be potentially superstars maybe someday in this league, but they got a long way to go to get into that department. And the only way you get maybe those guys into the top 5 guys who are currently there to walk away from this league. And you're going to need to have a lot of guys who are in front of them in that list to walk away also. You ain't going to get Tatum to jump over Giannis or jump over Joel Embiid or jump over Steph, guys who are currently in front of him. You ain't going to get Jaylen Brown to somehow surpass those guys and get into that top 5 in the situation, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, every player has that. You got, that date where they got to basically say, and I'm retiring in this situation. And once that happens, their slot opens in this situation for another player to finally move in this case. Because obviously, unless you're talking the all-time list in this situation, if you're going to basically talk about the currently, that slot is going to become available. But Tatum and Brown at this point, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, they're the only two in this situation that are untouchable, in my opinion. And why is that? Because unless you find another team who is just as good, you're never really going to get something just as valuable in this case. That's the only reason. But what can we say about the rest of the team, you guys? Really, let's be honest. What can we say about anybody else on this team? Any other player? Name me any player, ladies and gentlemen, that you can say, oh, because of this, you can't find somebody else that brings that same type of play, that same determination, that same leadership in the situation, and somehow somebody else doesn't bring something extra on top of it. Think about it. One player that we can mention, you guys, and everybody seems to have a love fest, Marcus Smart. Ladies and gentlemen, you're telling me I can't find somebody else out there that basically is not as good or not better than Marcus Smart if we wanted to trade him? That somehow Marcus Smart has to be deemed just as untouched for Kevin Garnett? Because literally, that's what you people have done. You've put Marcus Smart in the same category as Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. And why? What has Marcus Smart literally done for this team, ladies, and get that type of no trade clause? Literally, you guys, I don't know what it is. It's almost laughable. Last time I heard, no trade clauses went to players who have been team-altering players who have changed the direction of franchises and all of that, players who have won you multiple championships, things like that. last I checked, we haven't won a championship since I just named Pearson Garnett were on this team. And yet, somehow, it seems like there's no, like, basically every player we sign can't get no trade clauses unless the fans and this fan base, you can't give a no trade clause to Tatum or Brown, but you can certainly give it to Kyrie Irving or Kemba Walker. In this case, two players you all hated. You guys were willing to give it to Al Horford after you all basically, because you sided with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. It's utterly ridiculous, in my opinion. As you said, you got to basically look at the situation going forward, ladies and gentlemen, as in this season, and trust me, we ain't winning this season the way we're going. What's the next step? What's the next thing that would be basically best to do to get something out of it? It's something, Igor, you and me said many years ago, that you and me, not only by the members in our group, but by Tyree and many others from CLNS in this situation. And ultimately, look who turned out being correct when it came to that in this situation as well. Tank. Are more likely, ladies and gentlemen, to walk away missing the playoffs this year than you are to be a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. That's the truth. And that's not only because of how crappy you've played, because of how many injuries, guys catching COVID you've had, but also because of how loaded the top of the Eastern Conference is this year. Teams like Chicago have now jumped into the mix. It's no longer just Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee, and Toronto being up there in this case. Now you got more teams who can be a top 4 seed, meaning you're less likely to be in that mix at this point. So if you're not going to be able to not basically play at that high level consistently, why not basically get a top pick in this situation, knowing that if you can get that top pick, you can now entice a team like Washington, throwing names out there, Washington, Portland, teams out there that may be willing to say, we got a top star, but we might be willing to get rid of them, to say, okay, if you got the number one pick or the number 2 pick, I'll take it. Give me Marcus Smart, Time Lord, and something like that, and that pick you got in this situation, and I'll give you my star, my disgruntled star who wants to leave potentially in the next few years. But if you keep basically playing those, ladies and gentlemen, no offense, it's only going to continue to be heartbreak for the next few years, because at that point, you are just wasting your time and hoping for something that may never come at that point. And now when it comes to the Indiana Pacers, ladies and gentlemen, are worse than the New York Knicks. That's the truth. Even the standings prove it. The Knicks are right there with you in this case. The only thing that made it where you should have beaten the Knicks is so many guys in this case. If not, the Knicks are basically your equal at this point. But the Pacers are worse. There is no excuse for losing to the Indiana Pacers in the next few games. Either one of those games, just one of those games, it is a complete failure in this situation. You have to win one of those 2 games, or should I say, you have to win both in this situation, Igor. You have to win.
Okay, we explained in our last show 303, if I'm correct, or 13. I forgot the number. In our last show, in the second hour, you and I discussed how you should build, the championship team. How you should build the championship team. What is wrong with the Celtics' way of building the championship team? So go to blogtalkradio.com, remote to 1 hour and 30 or 1 hour and 40, listen to Danny and me discussing what is the difference between the championship team like Milwaukee Bucks and the team like Boston Celtics. What do we miss? Saturday, the new show, we will try to get for Saturday the guest, or we will be there our crew. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Andy. Thank you, Daniel. It was a nice show. And of course, Danny upload the show at the YouTube tomorrow. And I hope that we covered all the subjects. And we hope that the Celtics will finally defeat Indiana in both games and finally start the winning streak. Until Saturday, blogtalkradio.com, we are wishing you good night and go Celtics tomorrow in Indianapolis.
Okay, so I think we lost Igor, but again, ladies and gentlemen, signing off here again for missing this show in this situation, as fortunately we had family showing up today at my house. So I told Igor it was going to be kind of a crazy day for me over here. But we will see you all 6 o'clock Saturday night, blogtalkradio.com. Look for us on Facebook, Celtics Talk Radio page, as we will have the link for the show in this situation, as well as throughout the week for updates on who our guest case. And we will talk to you again Saturday, 6 p.m.